Well, welcome. Good morning. We're going to talk this morning about open content at OCLC. My name's Jay Holloway. I am a product manager in the delivery services area, where I think about the end user experience from discovery all the way through to delivery. So from the relevance algorithms all the way to the fulfillment options that people have. So what does open mean to OCLC? So open access is a huge term. Open content is an even larger one. And so when our group sat down and started to think about open, we needed a way to describe what it meant to us and how we're going to move it forward. So I think if you've seen different definitions of open access, it has kind of a wide matrix of different types of use to different types of access. And in our working group at OCLC, we started with a definition so that we could just have a strategic starting point for what open content means. So this is really just a way for us to narrow the scope of open and not to say this is the definitive definition of open content. So for us, in this phase of our work, we're thinking of open content that is open and freely available. It's digital and available immediately and fully in a digital environment. It is inclusive of public domain content where it's available online and digitally. So something like HathiTrust. So when our working group sat down to start thinking about how we're going to move open content forward at OCLC, we wanted to start with what are some of the benefits and challenges that libraries face around open. So some of the benefits, and there's a lot to be said around this area. Open access is a huge area right now. There's a lot being talked about and discussed. And really, it was kind of, again, a narrowing exercise of like, what are the things that are most important, and can we start there? What do we have traction on, and what can we get moving on? So a few of the benefits are expanded collections and greater visibility. So with open access content, we're able to provide entire collections available to your library for free. So immediately just turn them on either the knowledge base or through configuration through OCLC. Unlimited access, of course, the end user benefits, greater dissemination of knowledge, and some tools in order to shift or lessen the burden on the budget for the library. So I'm standing right across from Cambridge Press, which is doing some of that collaborative work with libraries today as well, to try to figure out what are some ways that we can help to change or shift the cost per use model in favor for librarians and for their patrons. And then, of course, there are some challenges in this area. One of the historic challenges is the ease of access and broken links to open content. So it's been a space that's evolved over time. Some of the standards that existed for licensed content weren't necessarily built for the open world. And so we need to figure out how we're going to improve link quality and access to the materials as well. There have been a lot of hosting or platform changes, so specifically thinking about something like institutional repositories, where I think we've gone through migrations before where the data migrations aren't perfect, so maybe we had an open link that worked perfectly well at one point, and now it's in our master record at OCLC, and it no longer points to a repository that's being used. So challenges like that we're thinking about. There is definitely room for the standards to grow and evolve, which we will talk about. And then a challenge that I think people have at front of mind is questionable editorial practices. So open access is something that hasn't evolved from the traditional publishing space. So how do we know that it's authoritative, peer-reviewed, going to be content that's useful and valuable for users? So I will slide through these. So our commitment to open content is that OCLC privileges open content to deliver on our mission, that what is known must be shared. And I just think that's such a beautiful, perfectly interwoven message for open access at OCLC. So today we'll talk about a few of these areas. So increasing the overall access that we have to the diverse world of open content, the integration of open into our products and services, supporting libraries and including the library-driven open content, as well as our dedication to moving these things forward. So to talk about the body of content that we have at OCLC for a minute, we've worked over the past 20 years to aggregate content from over 300 providers, 100 of which have provided some form of open content, so either hybrid, full, or embargoed content. This is a few of the providers, and we also work with content providers that exclusively provide open content as well, such as DOAB, HathiTrust, Unpaywall. I think you'll recognize all of those. So using this vast body of content that we have available at OCLC, we're trying to figure out where can we start to inject that content into meaningful experiences for your patrons. So to start, we'll talk about our open product, WorldCat.org, which is available freely online for anyone to use. So excited that we have an open access filter now on WorldCat.org that can be used to search over 50 million records that are coming from those sources that we just talked about, DOAB, Knowledge Unlatched, PLOS. So I just did a search. I've been curious about systems thinking recently. I did the search yesterday on economics and systems thinking. I checked the open access filter and found this really interesting book that I was able to download to my laptop with just a few clicks. And it was actually pretty fun. It talks about policy and how systems thinking could help with this kind of problem with linear thinking and policy decisions and how that's led to problems in the past and how we may be able to avoid them with some different ways of different mental models. And then building on the open access filter within WorldCat.org, we have the same filter in WorldCat Discovery, which is the OCLC Discovery product. But we've also worked with Unpaywall, who has worked on this the link quality problem that we're talking about. So one of the challenges, link quality, Unpaywall has an algorithm that looks at all the different versions of links that point to open content, and they decide which one is going to be the best one. So is it the most reliable, and is it the version that it will be most valuable to the researcher? So with both of those experiences, we're able to surface open links in WorldCat Discovery alongside the open citations. Then the next kind of piece of this puzzle is with around the linking is with the OCLC knowledge base. So institutions are able to create curated collections within the knowledge base of links that point to open content, and then any librarian can just go flip a switch and turn on this completely curated collection at your own institution. So we're using our network of OCLC members to ensure that everyone's getting equal access to the curated, high-quality open content that's available to you. And we are looking at ways to move standards forward. So we have the product experiences today that are limited in some ways by the machine ability to understand what is open access and what open links exist. So one example of that is the MARC standard that OCLC worked on with the German National Library to develop and got approved at Midwinter ALA. It will be published later this year. And with that, we'll be able to have a machine-readable way to understand if links are open, what license and access rights there are to that material, and then to apply that to WorldCat. So once we have that as a starting point, we're also going to then work with publishers to understand what are the ways that you're identifying open and how can we make sure that it aligns to the myriad of ways that we're doing it in WorldCat with the MARC standard as well. We're also working with the NISO Open Discovery Initiative. They have taken on open access as an area of focus for this year. I'm on that group as well. So we are talking about how can we work with discovery providers. So we sent out a survey to understand kind of what does your landscape look like for open access as a discovery provider. And then we're also going to work with content providers to understand what is the landscape looking like right now for you, and how can we help you adopt some of these models that are coming out. So within OCLC Research, another way that we're trying to help collaborate is by bringing in presenters that are knowledgeable in this field. We know that we're not starting from scratch. There are a ton of people thinking about this right now. One great example of this is Char Booth, who presented last year on a very interesting problem that students that have actual rights to use licensed content are instead going to illegal pirated sources because it's just so much more convenient in some cases. So they don't have to authenticate, they just search right in Google and get it right there in one click. So thinking of that problem, open access is a great opportunity to be able to compete with that user experience in a trusted and legal way, right? So that's just one example that got us thinking. Another is the Open Content Survey. So this just happened and wrapped up in January, I think. So there were 705 respondents from 82 countries. So a huge response, which was exciting. And one thing that I loved about that was that discoverability of open content was pointed out as an area that OCLC could help with open content activities. Being in the discovery area myself, I was like, yes, exciting. But I also loved that of the respondents, 20% indicated that OCLC is helping institutions in some way with their open content activities. Just like, okay, pretty good. But then 50% see some area that OCLC could help with their open content activities as well. So there's a 30% margin there that we can help with in some way, which I'm excited about. We're also, like we said, going to places where good work's already being done. So we're working with Core, Spark, IIIF, ORCID to understand where they're at and how we can help. We're supporting national and regional bibliographic infrastructures. And we talked about the MARC proposal a little bit already. We're going to continue exploring in these areas. So just a few examples of that is a linked data prototyping with open data. So connections with Wikidata, VIAF, open metadata that's out there that we can help to enrich the discovery experience with. OER in open textbooks is another interesting area. Being a recent new, again, student myself, I've loved OERs and am hoping to bring in more of that content myself here. Institutional publishing of open content and just access to institutional repository content worldwide. So how can we help make it easier to get content in from your IRs into worldcat.org so it's more visible and so that the metadata remains high quality. So again, some evolution of standards there needs to happen. And then just continuing to expand our universe of open content. So what is the next most important thing? What open content do you wish you had in the repository? I was just talking to a few institutions yesterday where we were thinking OERs would be, again, another great source that we could pull in more content. And finally, there is a website, oc.lc/open, where you can see just kind of a high, big picture level view of what's going on. Some of the sessions that I referenced earlier, you can see the recordings of those, like the Char Booth one, and there's other activities that are coming up as well that will be promoted through there. So thank you all for joining us for a few minutes.